Hi friends, today we're going to be talking about valuable vintage items, and I have done videos of valuable vintage items for Christmas and then valuable vintage items for Halloween, but this video is not seasonal. This is items that are good year-round. You can always have these displays out. They're great items to collect. And I'm going to do this rapid fire. I have a lot of these items, so I can talk about them from personal experience, but some of them I do not. And so we're going to talk about all of them, and I would love to hear what items you think are valuable. These vintage items are great to resell if you're a reseller, so it's items that you can be looking for at flea markets and at estate sales. And then these are also items that are just really fun to collect and that you can someday maybe sell for a lot of money, which is personally what I do. I'm not a big reseller, but it's nice to know what items you can get a really good deal on. If you see like one of these items for $1, make sure you pick it up. So let's get started. Some of these items might be a little more mainstream and a little more common, and then others I hope that you learn something new. So first we're starting off with a pretty obvious one, jadeite. And I don't have a lot. I have this one salt shaker, and then I do have 3 bowls that I found at a thrift store. These items can be easily reproduced, and they're even made now. So be careful if you do find it. Don't spend a lot of money on a piece that's a reproduction. And I'm going to go through a bunch of items, and all of them are going to be linked below so that you can see what the prices are online. And if you want to buy something, maybe you can get a good deal online. The second item is vintage crewels. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I sure hope so. Crewels are like pillows, they're like needlepoint, and I have them in pillow form. I don't have any of the framed artwork. So people would buy these in like kits, and I think they're really popular in like the 70s. And then you could do this while you're, watching TV or whatever, and then you'd have a really cute pillow. The third item is vintage and antique quilts. So this is a postage stamp quilt, which I found at a thrift store. I can't believe it. Someone worked really hard on this, and it's really impressive. It's hand sewn. Quilts can be worth a ton, and it just depends on the type and also the condition. Like this one is in really good shape. There's no tears at all. But even if you do find a quilt that isn't in great shape, you can use them as a cutter quilt, which is a really big thing that lots of crafters do, and they'll cut the little shapes out and make craft projects out of them. And since we're talking about quilts, I also have to bring up a type of quilt that I don't have, but I would love to own one day. They're yo-yo quilts. So yo-yos are these adorable little fabric circles that you can make out of scraps. And then people will make these into a ginormous quilt. Like, can you imagine the amount of effort it would take to make all these yo-yos and then hand sew them together? Those quilts, the vintage ones, can be worth a pretty penny. Vintage tins are generally pretty affordable, but some of them can be very expensive. So this campfire marshmallow tin, I saw for the very first time at a flea market, and it was $20. And I was pretty young. I was like 22 or something, and I was like, ooh, $20 for a tin, that's way too much. And then I really wanted it, so I went back to the booth after I left it behind, and it was sold. And when I went home and looked it up on eBay, I saw how expensive these are, and I regretted not buying it. I searched for another one for a year, and I still couldn't find it. I was really sad. I had told my parents about it, and then when I bought this house as a housewarming gift, they gave me this tin, and I love it. I treasure it. And they're really expensive. Other tins that can be expensive are like really big potato chip tins. And I talked about potato chip tins in my vintage storage video, where I shared a bunch of different items that are great to use as storage that are also vintage items. And the potato chip tins that I have, most of them don't have lids, but potato chip tins, certain ones, like certain brands, certain colors with certain designs, can be quite expensive. Another expensive tin that I personally am on the hunt for is by a Danish designer, and I'm probably going to say it wrong. It's like Laurid's Longboard, I think. And there are these colorful tins with like apples and flowers on them. They look very mid-century modern. And like I said, it's a Danish designer. So the only ones that I've seen online are actually in the United Kingdom. I haven't seen any being sold in the United States. So if you're in Europe, maybe you'll have a higher chance of finding it, or in the UK. I kind of don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get it, but I put it on my wish list for this year. I create a vintage wish list every year, and I will link that below. It's like what I hope I'll find this year, and I'm trying to manifest it. So I will link that if you want to see what else is on there. Another item that is on there that I'm dying to have is a vintage Hudson Bay coat, this wool striped coat. And they also made a wool blanket, which my friend Thrift Kitch Witch just thrifted, and I'm so jealous that they found it. So this is adorable. It's a pea coat. I'm dying to have it. But yeah, this is my vision board that I made for my future dream life. And that's how much I want this coat. This is what I want, like, in my whole future. And if you want to make a vision board, I will link that blog post as well. Another item that I shared in my vintage storage series are vintage racks. So this one held magazines, and then I have this one that is a candy rack, which is adorable for storage. And some of them can be worth a lot. Like, I really want to find a vintage lifesaver rack, and then also other like gum racks and stuff. Those can be worth a lot. The next item is made in Japan ceramics, and this is the Left-Han Miss Priss kitty, and she is such a cutie patootie. I got a big set of her on eBay, and the reason I was able to afford it is because it doesn't have like tops. So there's like a sugar bowl and a teapot, and all of them are missing their tops, and that means that it's more affordable for me. But if you have your hands on one that has like a top or it's a complete set, you can sell it for a lot of money. But besides that, made in Japan ceramics, they'll normally say on the bottom that's where they're made. Those can be worth a lot depending on what they are. So if you see any, definitely check how much they sell for. A lot of made in Japan ceramics are salt and pepper shakers. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this is also a Nesco, and it says right here on the sticker, Japan. And these are little snail salt and pepper shakers, and they're so cute. And these are worth quite a bit. I bought them at a flea market, and I couldn't believe how much I could sell them for. Another popular salt and pepper shaker set that sells for a lot are the Winking Kitty ones. I think they're Nesco. Those are expensive. I have those salt and pepper shakers as well. So salt and pepper shakers are really highly collectible anyway, but if they're made in Japan, they can be worth more. An item that I don't have, but I hope to find for an affordable price one day, are vintage paint by numbers. I've seen a few of those at antique stores, and they're pretty pricey. Depending on what the painting actually is, they can be worth a lot. Next item is something that I just bought. It's vintage rugs. I just got this one on eBay, and it is so beautiful. I haven't used it yet. These are way cheaper than new rugs. So the reason I have it in here is because if you can find a rug pretty affordably at like estate sales and flea markets and thrift stores, and you can resell it for hundreds of dollars. But what I'm also saying is it's a big hack in life that you should buy vintage rugs over new rugs, because a new rug is like $1,000, but you can find vintage ones that are higher quality and easier to clean, and those can be like $200 on eBay. So if you need a new rug, don't buy new. Buy vintage. I'm going to link to vintage rugs on eBay, which is where I got this beauty, but then there's also an awesome Etsy shop that sells really cheap rugs as well, and I will link to that too. Hi, we're in my bathroom now, and that's because I want to show you lady head vases. These are worth a lot, and I buy all my lady head vases because they're broken. Like this one, I don't even know what's supposed to be here, but it's definitely missing a piece, and that means I was able to buy it for like $2. But if you want to buy a lady head vase and it's completely perfect, there's no chips at all, it's going to be quite expensive. And then some lady head vases are actually made after people. So like I have one that is like Lucille Ball, but one that is really expensive is a Jackie Kennedy head vase. Another item that's been on my wish list for quite a while is the Galaxy Spaceman syrup jars. Those are so cute. If you love like retro futurism, retro space stuff, you're gonna love these. Next on the list that is of course pretty obvious and everyone knows about it is vintage Pyrex is worth a lot. And vintage Pyrex is worth more, like if it has a lid, if it comes with the original lid. So like this one doesn't have its lid, but I don't care. So I've always wanted this pink daisy one. It was the casserole dish that was featured in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and one of my Instagram friends sent this to me, which was really kind. If you want to buy them cheaper, get them without the lid, but there's a lot of Pyrex collectors that want like ones that are in perfect condition, nothing wrong with them with the lids, and those are worth a lot. Even if they have like the original box, that can make them worth more. But I also wanted to say about Pyrex is there are certain Pyrex patterns that are very uncommon. So like this summer I went to a flea market and I learned about barcode Pyrex, which I'd never heard of or seen in person before. And when I saw the price tag, I couldn't believe it. So if you see a Pyrex that has a design you've never seen it before, just take a minute and look it up on eBay because you might be able to resell it for a lot. Royal typewriters, especially in special colors like pink, can be worth hundreds of dollars. So I saw a pink Royal typewriter at my mom's antique booth. It's a Harvest Antique Booth in Holland, Michigan, and I loved it. But I think they were selling it for like $100, and I posted it on my Instagram, and everyone freaked out about it and told me to buy it. But one of my Instagram followers asked for the location of it, and they went and bought it, which is awesome. So if you have a typewriter with like a special color, especially if it's Royal, the brand, you can sell it for a lot. Another famous item, especially amongst mid-century modern collectors, is, okay, I'm gonna say this wrong again, and I just want everyone to know that if I say things wrong, it's because I'm reading it on Instagram, I'm reading it in magazines. I'm not saying these words out loud, so please be nice if I'm saying it wrong. Catherine Holm Designs. Catherine Holm was a factory in Norway that made this special design that they would put on like fondue pots and bowls, and you can actually see one of the Catherine Holm items in the popular TV show Schitt's Creek. It's a teapot, and I think they use it in the show, but it's definitely on a shelf in Johnny and Moira's motel room, and it's so cute and I want it so bad. So I hope to find one of those pieces one day. They have the cutest designs and they're very colorful. Now we're moving on to vintage glassware. So this is a giant Blendo pitcher. I got it for $5 at a flea market, and I have a huge Blendo glassware set that I found on Facebook Marketplace. And a part of that was this chip and dip set. So I actually only had this part of the chip and dip set that was in my Facebook Marketplace find. It didn't have the regular bowl, and so I added that to my wish list, like things that I was hoping to find at the flea market, and then I ended up finding this bowl for $5. So I was able to complete the set. And these can be worth quite a bit. Mid-century modern barware, like really cute sets that people would have in their own bars at home. Like think of like Mad Men, Donald Draper, the kind of drink that he would make in a cute vintage shaker. Those things when they have like adorable etching on it. So like the brand that's really famous is Hazel Atlas. And one of the items that is quite expensive and I'd love to have one day are the pink elephant sets. That would be really cute. I saw them at an estate sale once. Like I saw it in the preview of the estate sale, and then when I went to go and try to get it, it already sold within the first 5 minutes because they're so collectible. That same estate sale that I just talked about where I couldn't get that barware, I did get these. This is a vintage, they're plastic. I think they technically are probably blow molds. They belong on string lights, and I bought them and they didn't have the actual string light, which is fine because I could buy my own string lights and they're going to be more eco-friendly anyway. So I bought a giant set of these. I think there's 20 owls, and I just bought a new string light, so I'm going to put it together, and I'd love to light these up in the winter time because, you know, we all need a little joy in life and it's really dark, so I think this would be a lot of fun. I also got this set at that estate sale. So they're flowers and they come in all these different colors. But vintage string lights, I did not know that they'd be worth a lot, but they are. I think they're really popular among like campers, vintage glamping. Like if you have like a vintage camper, how cute would these be hanging outside? So that's goals for me. I hope to one day have these hanging outside of a vintage camper, but until then I will proudly display them in my house. Also at that same estate sale, I bought this vintage radio. It doesn't work anymore, but it's still really adorable. Vintage radios are often quite expensive, especially if they're in a cute color. If they're just white, it's not going to sell for nearly as much, but if it's like pink or mint green, you'll be able to sell it for more, especially the bigger the radio. Like if it's just like a small one, it'll sell for less. An item that has been on my vintage wish list for 3 years now are chalkware mermaids. They are so cute, and I would love to have a set of vintage mermaids to hang on my wall in my bathroom. And then they even have like little bubbles and little chalkware fish, and the mermaids can be pretty pricey, but chalkware in general can be worth quite a bit. I know that chalkware used to be really popular like as carnival games, and especially like back in the day, I remember seeing them on Downton Abbey. If you watch that show, they have a carnival scene and they had those as prizes, which I thought was really cool to see, but chalkware can be worth a lot of money. Now we move on to lunch boxes. Lunch boxes, especially depending on if they're based on like a movie or a TV show or a comic book, can be worth a lot. So my favorite Disney movie is Peter Pan, and I found this lunchbox for $5 and I couldn't believe it, and I think it's worth quite a bit on eBay. I also have a Roy Rogers lunchbox that I bought for $7 at the same flea market that I bought this one. And since we're on this subject, I'm also going to talk about the next item, which is vintage Disney. And Disney collectibles are expensive. I would know because I love to collect vintage Disney items, and in my Halloween collectible video, I talked about the vintage Haunted Mansion record, which can be quite expensive, and I was able to buy it for a pretty good deal, but that's one of the most popular rides at Disneyland and Disney World, and so the really old, one of the original records is worth a lot. But there's tons of vintage Disney items from like every subject. In my storage video, I showed my Snow White trash can that I have, and that sells for like $100 on eBay. If you see a unique vintage Disney item when you're at a flea market, just search it real quick. Maybe it'll be worth a lot. Another really hot vintage item right now is the Merry Mushroom set, particularly the canister set, but there is a whole collection of Merry Mushroom items that you can get, and you can look up the vintage Sears ad that has the full collection on it that you can buy, and they've got everything. Like you can get like a clock with the mushroom on it. I mean, anything you can think of, and these canister sets are worth a lot. I actually bought the full canister set. I'm missing the biggest one, but I have 3 of them, and I bought them actually individually, one at a time, and that ended up being the cheapest. But if you want to like buy a complete set, it's quite expensive. Also, some of the items that are not as common and hard to find, so like I said, like the Merry Mushroom clock, like things like that, those are going to be a little more expensive. I'm sure like the Merry Mushroom butter dish is probably worth a lot. So if you see these or if you own them, they might be worth a bit. 2 items that I own, but I can't show you because they're way too big, are vintage patio umbrellas. So that was on my wish list from last year, and I was so excited that I finally found it. I've wanted one of those for ages. So I got one on Facebook Marketplace, and then I got the other one for $5 at a garage sale. So those are worth a lot. Like if you see them at flea markets, like antique stores, things like that, they can sell for like $300 a piece. And then the other item is vintage patio sets, particularly like Homecrest. That's the brand that sells like these really beautifully designed like swivel chairs, and then also gliders. And I got a glider and a chair on Facebook Marketplace this year. I've wanted those for at least like 10 years, and they have beautiful green flower power seats and stuff. So those are worth a lot. If you have that set, then you're sitting on a lot of money. Then an item that I do own, but I wasn't able to get because it's buried in my basement, is Fire King. And so my Fire Gang has really cute mugs, and they also have the tulip bowls, which is what I own. I have 2 tulip bowls and then also tulip salt and pepper shakers, and I was able to get that from one of my Instagram friends as well. And those are really cute. I also live in a town called Holland where we have tulip time, and I'm very Dutch, so I needed to have that tulip set. But those are worth a bit. I also have a Fire King tulip advertisement, which is neat. So a bonus item that I'm going to say is some vintage advertisements are worth a lot. But I don't have the bowls because in my basement it's a total mess, and I'm going to organize that soon. It's going to be a continuation of my storage series. So make sure that you subscribe so that you can see my hot mess basement. But that is all 27 items. Let me know, did you learn anything new? Is there an item that I talked about that's on your wish list or that you recently found? I would love to know. Leave me a comment. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Bye.